Hello, citizens. Councillor Gian-Carlo Carra here, Ward 9 TV Light. This is an issue that affects the entire city, and it's actually something I find myself talking with all kinds of Calgarians whenever I bump into them. And the conversation is, of course, the Olympics 2026. Really? What I'm finding is that there's a pretty polarized perspective amongst citizens. There's the people who rightly acknowledge that the Olympic movement has become a spectacularly corrupt sort of situation that costs municipalities and countries a tremendous amount of money, and they don't want to have anything to do with the Olympics. On the other hand, there is the Olympic fans out there who appreciate, despite the tawdry state of the Olympic Committee right now, appreciate what the Olympic movement represents, and/or they are people who experienced the 1988 Games in Calgary and what it did for this city, for the citizens, in terms of locking in the powerful sort of image we have of ourselves as a completely volunteer-driven community. I would say that the next major thing to happen to the city of Calgary to sort of be a tour de force of our best impressions of who we are as a people was probably our response to the 2013 flood. But the Olympics loom large, not just in terms of what it meant to us as a people amongst ourselves, but also how it projected an image of Calgary to the world abroad. And one of the things that we talk about with regard to the Calgary Olympic Games is how it was an Olympics that was run on volunteers and actually made money. And some people contest that, but there's a lot of good arguments, pro and con. And the reality is it certainly wasn't one of those super expensive, debt-creating things like the Sochi Olympics or like the Beijing Olympics. We can really sort of talk about the 1988 Olympics as a very smart, business-savvy, sustainable sort of approach that really projected Calgary internationally. The other thing, of course, it did was it locked in Calgary in the best hopes of the Olympic Games as a real center for excellence in winter sports, and that's a legacy that carries on to this day. So what we have now before us is a conversation and an opportunity. And the reality is that the Olympic movement and the Olympic Committee has acknowledged some of the realities and some of the image that they've accrued as being sort of a corrupt, expensive, net bad proposition for municipalities that get involved with the movement, and they want to clear up their image. And so the Olympic Committee has something, I think it's called Vision 2020, where they're talking about a reimagining of the Games in such a way that they are a lot more cost effective, they are a lot less resource intensive, they're a lot more sustainable, reusing of resources and all of that. And that idea of taking existing facilities and repurposing them and just giving a facelift and using what you've got to throw an internationally, significant Olympic Games, but not break the bank in doing so, is right where Calgary comes walking in, because we're at a point where our facilities could use a bit of a refresh. We're also at a point where we're changing how we build this city. We're talking about building, massive amounts of transit, vibrant neighborhoods along the route. We're also talking about more sustainable ways about moving around the region. Transit, rail out to Canmore and Banff and Lake Louise. And it would be nice to do all of these things, but without the impetus of a Games, maybe we're not going to be able to reach that far. So on last summer, the end of last summer, or the sort of before we broke for August break, Council made the decision to set aside $5 million and actually pursue it. And an Olympic bid committee was formed, and that Olympic bid committee is doing their work. Recently, they've been in the news. Some of their employees, they're not sharing their names. I share the public opinion that these are names and these are positions that should be public, and we should actually, people should stand by their work, and I'm sure we'll resolve that in the next little while. But the important thing is that this work is going ahead, and on February or January 23rd, last council meeting, council received a report from administration. And what administration was basically proposing to us was the framework whereby they would evaluate the work of the Olympic Exploration Committee and then make a recommendation to us. So we've got really a two-step process. We've got a committee that's been set up. It's been given funds to hire people, answer a bunch of questions, and put together a rational proposition for whether we should or should not pursue an Olympic bid for the 2026 Games. And then we've got administration providing oversight to that work. When it's baked, it goes to administration. Administration runs it through their criteria, and based on how it performs and administration's criteria, makes recommendations to the city, to your city council, and we make the decision whether we pull the chute and get out of the idea or whether we go for it. I understand all the arguments against the Games, but I also understand two things, I think, at this point in history. I agree with the sentiment that the world needs Canada more now than ever. We need more Canada. And I think the Olympic Calgary corollary is that the Olympics need Calgary more than Calgary needs to the Olympics. But if we can pull another 1988 Games, if we can very cost effectively produce the Olympic Games as a business savvy proposition and prove to the world what good government, a great business community, an amazing part of the world, an amazing physical setting can do, I think that that's the kind of message we want to send forth. I think that the Olympics have left an amazing legacy in this city, and if we could do a review engagement and a return of that, and at this point in time, prove to the world that Calgary is who we say we are, that's something we should definitely pursue. So I look forward to the report coming to us from the Exploration Committee via administration in June. I will be all over that. I'm sure we'll all be all over that. But I can tell you, my fingers are crossed that there is a way forward that we could pull this off in a cost-effective way. Anyway, we've got a lot to find out over the next little while, and it's exciting to dream. Councillor Gian-Carlo Carra, signing off.